So the motivation for collecting not one but two creation stories says something about the ancients. They were not so concerned with literal and scientific truths, but with poetic ones, with liturgical ones. And these stories gave insight into the workings of human life, to its shape and meaning. The second creation story spoke to the fact that farmers had to work hard, human beings had to work hard for their food. And while we might long for idyllic gardens where we are sustained without effort, that is not our nature. The story also explained something about humans' connection to other creatures and reflected their relationship between one another, between the genders. It also told them something about what sin looked like, how humans are lulled into it, and how the breach causes suffering and even death, and how humans tend to find themselves both exposed and desperate to be covered and desperate to pass the blame when sin is uncovered by God. Now, for the sake of storytelling today, this story will be from the point of view of the snake. And for the sake of the story, I do retain the convention of naming the fruit as the apple. So hear this from the point of view of the snake. Back then, I had 17 sets of feet. I was a wonder to behold, sort of like a centipede, only you could actually count my 34 legs. Still, walking around in that garden, I was an army in my own right. All those other creatures stared at me as I marched by, and every time I ran, it was like the thundering of clouds on the day of creation. Now, there were many curious-looking creatures. The giraffe with the long neck, the wombat with its wide-set eyes, the harpy eagle with its fluffed-out face. But to be sure, the atom was the strangest-looking creature of all, mostly hairless and standing erect, and those arms not sure what to do with themselves. At least the ape had enough sense to put the knuckles down on the ground when he was just standing around and not using them. Still, I came to see the atom as useful. The ape and the monkey and the atom were the only creatures who could climb a tree and bring an apple down with their hands instead of throwing it down and bruising it. I worked on the ape and the monkey first. To be sure, the apples actually weren't even their favorites. They liked to shake the trees with all those nuts, and the long yellow fruits, they went all apey over them. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil, well, they climbed up into the canopy and hung around all day, grooming themselves, all those lovely apples just around them, but they barely even touched the fruit. In Adam's eye, I could see there was something else going on, something complicated as he considered that tree. Too often he stopped and stared at it a while. So once, when he was in a talkative mood, he told me about Lord God and how, before all the animals were created, Lord God had commanded the atom not to eat the apples. Was it right, the atom wondered, that all the animals could eat freely of it, but the atom alone was forbidden? The atom was the only creature in the garden that did not have a close companion also. I could hang out with the lizards and the crocodiles, and the ape partnered with the monkeys, and the skunk and the porcupine and the possum all became friends, and the elephant and the rhino bathed together. Only the coyote did not have a companion, but the coyote did not want one. Now, I tried to make friends with the atom. Maybe we were just too different and we couldn't see eye to eye. But he didn't seem that interested in talking. And then Lord God decided that the atom was indeed too unique a creature to have friends with any of the rest of us. So one night while the atom was asleep, Lord God came and laid Lord God's potter hands all over him, shaping and reshaping him. I was contemplating just on the other side of a rock a span away, so I could see this happening. See the whole thing as Lord God all broody, stretching and plating and moving and forming and shaping, and eventually Lord God got a second creature out of the skin of the atom. The atom was definitely smaller than he had been before, and the new thing smaller than that. The new thing, the Eve. Unlike the atom, who mulled often in silence, staring at all the creatures, watching everything grow and fade, the Eve was all bright and curious about the garden. She wanted to know about that fruit right off the bat, noticing its deep and beautiful color and its pleasing shape. But the atom told her that Lord God did not want them to eat it, that there were plenty of other fruits and seeds that they should be about eating. The atom was also quickly discovering how to separate seed from chaff and plant them, and learning how to gently turn the soil and watch the water as it flowed and things would grow. The Eve would sometimes help with that too, though it was all the living creatures that really captured her fancy. She went about trying to get to know them all. I still just wanted that apple. I will confess this much. I wanted it badly. All my awesome feet, but the Lord God made it so I could not climb. I tried to convince the ape to get one for me, but he just kept teasing me by plucking them in front of me and then making as if to offer it to me and then taking it back and eating it himself. Also, the ape wasn't good company, didn't talk much, and wasn't interested in my cleverness. But the Eve, she got language like no other creature. She would use words all day long. The atom had simply named the creatures and then become taciturn. But she differentiated the squirrel-nosed monkey from the snub-nosed monkey, from the white-faced Saki monkey. And she interviewed all the creatures about their meals, their friendships, their heart's desires. She didn't mind my company when the atom was occupied with new saplings and delicate seeds. It's true. I was the one who told her that she should pay no attention to the hearsay of the atom. How can you be sure that Lord God doesn't want you to eat it? You weren't even formed when Lord God talked to Adam. Can you be sure that's what Lord God meant? Maybe Lord God was just warning him not to eat the green apples. But look, they are ripe and ready now. The Eve was not so sure. She said the atom had been adamant that that one tree should not be touched. But the Eve did have to allow that she had actually never seen Lord God, since technically she was asleep when she was created. I worked on her steadily. Not at all obvious, not every day, but every now and then when the breeze blew through that tree, or when she was alone trying to feed a chipmunk or a sparrow. Maybe knowledge is a good thing, I said one day. You know, you look a lot like Lord God, I said. She kept quoting the Adam, saying, "If I eat it, I will die." But to be clear, she wasn't actually sure what die meant. Then, that morning, I saw her fashioning garments out of leaves and bark. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Haven't you noticed," she said, that we are the only naked creatures in the whole garden? And you are a very wily creature. Have you noticed that ants work together, but the tiger stalks alone at night? Have you noticed that time passes and things change? Some trees get bigger and others wither and die. Why is that? Why is my husband always so occupied with tilling and planting? And what does it mean that one creature feeds off of another? Is that fair? Do you think the elk deserves to die?" This is when I knew. I knew she had done it. She had had some of that apple, and she hadn't given any to me. That very night, Lord God showed up around dusk. The Adam and the Eve, they ran and hid when they heard Lord God. But Lord God found them. Lord God noticed the bark and leaf clothing right away, and Lord God was none too happy about this state of affairs. But the Adam and the Eve couldn't help but to make it worse. Instead of owning up to what they had done, they did this thing I'll call blame. And that really made Lord God flashing thunder angry. The Adam wouldn't even look Lord God in the eye, and he said, "She made me do it." And then the Eve, also looking down, said, "The serpent tricked me. She blamed me, and I didn't even get a bite of the apple." The Adam and the Eve, as you hear them tell it, will say that all three of us got punishment. Not only tell it, they wrote it down in their Bible. All three of us taking the rap for that one act. The Adam was set to hard work, the Eve to her own hard labor, and the Lord God took away my legs and made me slither on my stomach. Now that's their version of the story. And I guess it makes them feel better. That's the way they want to tell it. But as soon as I was footless, I discovered I could actually slither right up that tree and get those apples for myself. Some punishment. So who cares if the Adam and the Eve find me repulsive? It's not like they proved themselves worthy of being friends of a serpent. As I see it, they just keep blaming and blaming and blaming and blaming. None of them willing to own up to eating the fruit. It's enough to make me want to slither underneath a rock.